works, and I'll do a quick test over here on the other computer to make sure it's actually up. There we go. So we should be live, and we should be live on everything. So I'm going to go check whether we are. But we should be live to viewers on LinkedIn. And oh, look at that. Squirrel is live right now. Look at that.
I'm saying.
Looks like we're here. And it's me and my friend Tal. Super. Oh, and now we're getting feedback. Sorry. There we go. Turn that off. Okay. Good stuff. So I can verify it's live, and we're starting to get a few people coming in, which is fantastic. If you're coming in and you're not sure what this is about the mysterious world of Web3. So, and by the way, there'll be people watching on recordings as well. So if that's how you're watching, welcome to you as well. You can't ask as many questions, but you can always get in touch with me or Tal with questions if you have them afterwards. And we'll just give people a minute or so to turn up and get visiting. We've got Simon. Hi, Cy. Cy is just up the road from me, one of my clients that's closest to me here in Folkestone. We'll introduce Tal in a second and say hi to other folks. If you want to, you're welcome to say where you're checking in from as you appear. And we'll give everybody just a couple more minutes to just a minute or so to get in. Tal, we were mentioning where each of us are, so I'll say which part of the world I'm in. I'm in Folkestone in England, and the thing that people probably know is the Channel Tunnel, which is about 500 meters that way. So if I want to go to France, I'm closer to that than I am to pretty much anything else. But I don't think France is letting us in yet. Tal, how about where are you in the world?
So I've been living in Tel Aviv, Israel, for the past 2.5 years. Probably people know it because for the Israeli-Palestinian debacle.
But it's a wonderful city with all kinds of exciting activities and architecture and all kinds of other things.
Tel Aviv is a beautiful city. I'm really enjoying. After 11 years in London, I'm happy and excited, kind of like to go back home to catch a bit of sun. It's obviously like during COVID, it hasn't been as hectic as it used to be. It's a very tourism-driven city. A lot of sightseeing and a lot of good food. But when there's no tourists, obviously the city is quiet or quieter. So it was a really interesting, I think, period to see Tel Aviv a bit slower, with less people, less crowded, more kind of like people touring within the country, which is really nice to get to know other people from around the country. It's a relatively small country.
And you have such a cosmopolitan city as well. It's like London, that there's lots of people from many places, right?
Yes. So the state of Israel is a place where Jews can come from all over and receive citizenship, and so that brings people from all around the world. Though they do assimilate to a coherent culture, I would say. So they have the language, the local language, which unites them together, and obviously kind of like a bit of religion, a bit of history.
Makes sense. Well, we've got at least 10 people in. The count's not always accurate, and I invited about 40 folks, so I'm expecting more to join. But let's get started. Welcome to the Squirrel Squadron live stream. If you don't know what the Squirrel Squadron is, have a look at SquirrelSquadron.com. I won't spend a long time here, but it's my community of tech and non-tech people learning together. Very, very glad to welcome Tal to join us from Israel, as he was just describing. And Tal is associated to a company called Good Dollar, which he's going to explain, I think, to us. And the focus we're going to have is on this strange concept called Web3. And just to give the tiniest introduction, I was chatting to someone I know who actually used to be a Navy captain. So he was the captain of a ship. What he would do is not only steer the ship, but also, of course, lead his organization, lead his crew in a very impressive way. And when he came and chatted to me about the world of technology, He's now essentially a defense lobbyist, so he helps people who are are building the ships to get into the U.S. government. And he came to me and he said, "Squirrel, I've just come from a big conference. Everyone was talking about Web3. What is it, and why should I care?" And I said, well, I better help a lot of people get an answer to that question, because I'm not sure myself. So I've done some research. Tal is deep in the weeds of it with good dollar. And we're going to try to get a sense of what this emerging thing Web3 is. No one's really defined it officially. So I don't think we're going to have definitive answers here. We should have a good guide. And one thing I want to emphasize to people who are participating live, please fire in your questions. Unlike the Zoom sessions that I do for my executive community, you guys can't speak up, but you're right here in the chat. I can see all of your comments and places that you're from. We got Southampton, London, Hamburg, lots of places. So that means I'm seeing your comments, and we want you to ask questions. So we'll interrupt ourselves and stop as we're chatting, because Tal and I could go for the whole hour without listening to any of you. But don't worry, I'll stop us because we've got so much interesting stuff to talk about. So Tal, would you give us just a brief background on you and how you and I met, which is a fascinating story. And then I don't know as much about good dollar, so I hope you'll tell us about that too.
Sure thing. Thanks, Squirrel. So I can't actually remember how long was it ago that we met. Was it 2014?
Could have been, or 15, somewhere around there, just as I'd started 14, 15, my consulting.
Yeah. So, hi everyone, I'm Tal Oron. I am the executive director of a not-for-profit organization called gooddollar.org. Good Dollar is a core team member made of about 15 or so people working full-time, and a bunch of other contributing from the outside. To build a global global social impact project on the blockchain. So,
and I'm curious now, I just want to check. So you keep talking, Tal, but I'm going to ask everybody, can you just rate yourselves on how much you know about the blockchain? Like, what 10 is your
So
Satoshi
I would ask maybe a different question.
Oh, okay,
if you don't mind.
No, go ahead, Tal.
Who has MetaMask extension installed on their computer?
Okay, so that's gonna be way out of at the far end. Okay, fine, yeah, that's good. But I like it. I like it as well.
That's good enough.
So do you have MetaMask, a particular cryptocurrency wallet, installed? And I bet we're going to get a lot of no's, but I could be wrong. And
I'd love to know that as a baseline.
Let's see what people say. Just let's get a sense for where people are, and maybe I'll also ask, if your answer is no, how much do you know about the blockchain? If your answer is yes, we already know you know a lot about the blockchain. Keep going, Tal.
Sure, thank you. I'm not sure I'm following. Okay, okay, got it. Can't say that I do. Cool. Okay, getting it. Thank you, guys. So I'll continue on and refer to that in a second.
Great.
So so I'll start so my background is in computer science, product management, as a major as the role that I took over the many years, about 20 years in the job market. I'm 44 now. And I know Squirrel, and we met Squirrel when I was trying to, as a first-time founder of my own company, trying to grow an engineering team beyond the organic structure we were able to do ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I think Squirrel joined me when we were 8 engineers, and we grew the team to be 25 engineers, and that required a lot more coordination structure that we were able to do. Since then, the company that we worked together on was a company I was the COO and co-founder of, called Wonderbly, Wonderbly.com. Wonderbly is a personalized publishing platform that creates many stories for kids.
Amazing stories. That's
amazing stories for
amazing
kids. That
things for kids and dads and mums and children. It's great.
that the buyer of the book can influence parts of the book narrative to make it special for the kid themselves, and then we manufacture the book and we send it as close to and we send it directly to the person's home. We manufacture in 12 locations around the world to be able to send our books as gifts as fast as possible. There's a rendering stack which allows kind of like us to write books narrative and wrap them to be multi-narrative books with code. So we do that with kind of like on top of having a writer and an illustrator making a book for children, we actually add an engineer and have a full stack of tools for them to create logic and excitement within the books that we sell.
So you're no stranger to complexity, like the complexity of Web3 and of good dollar. That's something you are very, very familiar with. And I'm curious if you can tell the viewers, how did you get into good dollar? How did you get moving from this amazing factory of amazing books into nonprofit blockchain?
So first of all, I think I learned about blockchain, I guess, about 2015, around 2015 when Ethereum first launched. And I didn't get to touch the technology until 2018 when I joined Good Dollar. Hey Rob, what? And what excited me about about the technology to begin with is, I guess, is how data was structured, I guess. So I realized that this technology can allow the massive transfer of data and permissions to the hands of the users. Okay, that means that this technology would be the database of the future, the database of the internet.
And in particular, a distributed database. We'll say a lot about this, but I just want to make sure we're thinking about that to start with. It's very different from the centralized database that, say, Facebook
exactly
has.
And that's what I'm getting into, that actually, if you have this internet database, which doesn't belong to anyone, kind of like going back to the days of the beginning of the internet. So we have a technology that allows you to store and run software on the internet without kind of like the bigger companies behind it. So Facebook uses a database, their own database, to run the service that we know as Facebook. So when I create a status, I write that status on the Facebook database.
And if Mark Zuckerberg decides he doesn't like your status, out it goes.
Sure. And yes, it could. And obviously, like, if Facebook also has an unfair advantage regarding that access to the data. So there is the data, and we have been putting that data into the Facebook platform, but Facebook has an unfair advantage of using that data to their advantage, not necessarily at times to our even advantage. Yes, they want to create value, they want to provide value, but obviously we know that they are making a lot of money to their shareholders. How do they do that? They sell way more ads than we want to see.
And using a lot of information about us that we might not want to share. So how's good dollar different? So you're using the blockchain in ways that we'll generalize soon, but let's stick to the specifics of good dollar. How are you using the blockchain to be the opposite of Facebook?
I started so because I'm seeing kind of like some of the answers, maybe kind of like I'll wait with kind of like what good dollar is, because it's and we'll get to it. I just want to make sure that everyone's aligned on kind of like on the philosophy first, and why is this kind of like, and what is Web3 and why is it different, right?
We can be patient. Go ahead, Tal.
Web3, it's a very new kind of like a term that people have been using because the ecosystem of offerings and products served on top of the blockchain is growing and it's diversifying. So people needed to kind of like to have a mutual term that determines or defines kind of like what is it that is included in this new era of computing and what isn't.
So what would you say that it is? I have my opinion.
So I would say that, and this is
what would you
exactly,
say?
and this is my own, exactly that's what I wanted to say. Like, this is my own, Web3. So Web 1 to Web 1 is hyperlinks, okay? Static
going to web pages, clicking on links, going to different parts of the data.
Yeah, going to different things. In my opinion, okay, Web 2 is Ajax. So Web 2 is actually not being needed to refresh the page, but new information comes to you in a app style interface. So you are on Facebook and it keeps loading information. We're here on our video chat and there's things keeps on popping up on the side. So
nobody
in my
had to
opinion,
click any
this
links to see the additional comments. So I just, I made a comment and it showed up here. None of you had to touch the keyboard to do that. That's an interesting point of view. I have a different one, but keep going. So that's Web 2,
and
things refreshing automatically.
Facebook, Twitter are applications on Web 2 because they are making connection between people and interacting between people online. Okay,
and they are mediating it. So the source of these comments is YouTube and LinkedIn and so on. The centralized data sources. It's not the things are just hooked up together. It's they're going to a central place and bringing it in. I get it. Very nicely put.
And without actually like I don't think that was the aim. Everyone were like in the past 10 years, 12 years, kind of like the big companies has been trying to scale technology to allow them to go to big data, to understand a bunch of things about us, so that means like big data analysis and serving personalized experiences over Web 2. And that meant that they were like having large repositories of data, which they controlled. That was their almost business model, right? They were harvesting data and they were making something on top of that.
So what's Web 3 then? So that's, I think you've given a very different but very useful definition of 2. What's 3?
So for me, Web 3 is everything that uses an open database structure to do new things, okay? Basically, Web 3 is the combination, is like, for me, Web 3 is about tokens, or how would I explain that? For me, Web 3 is the meeting point of internet and money. Okay, but not money as we think it is right now. As
this is the tricky part, because everyone thinks crypto means Bitcoin. It doesn't. Yep.
And it doesn't necessarily. No. So Bitcoin is obviously the oldest and like the first, the father almost figure of all of those like innovations that has been kind of like coming since then. But basically it means that you can move a unique piece of data, okay, from one person, from one person to the other, okay, and guaranteeing that this piece of data cannot exist in 2 ways. So if it's the basic idea, it's just a number. So if we have a pool of 100 and Squirrel has 50 and I have 50, and I want to give him one, okay, then I can give him one without an intermediator that promises that I will give him one and I will not have my one for sure.
Yep.
So the
Because that's the
total
big
will
danger in
always be
databases.
100.
So you could imagine, let's do this in a way that might help some of the folks who are less familiar. Imagine you had a great big Excel spreadsheet, and in that spreadsheet, you're keeping score. How many of anything, it doesn't have to be money. This is the crucial thing. How many does Tal have and how many does Squirrel have? Well, you could just have a spreadsheet and you have 50 here and underneath Squirrel's name. And you have, sorry, this is backwards on the screen, 50 here and 50 here on the screen. The problem is Tal and I have to trust you and use your spreadsheet and believe in it. And that would be fine for you. I'm sure we could trust all of you guys. But when it starts to be Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, or it starts to be the folks who run LinkedIn or somebody like that, that kind of score keeping in a central database leads to all the abuses and the problems that we've seen in recent years. Overuse of adverts, violation of privacy, influencing elections, stuff like that. And so the Web3 reaction to that is to say, hang on, we've got this amazing thing and it happens to be used for Bitcoin, but that's not really the most important thing. It's not that it's necessarily used for money, but any kind of information that we want to store, and we want to store it and exchange it and keep track of it in a sensible way, we can do that in a safe way, knowing it'll be always there, knowing it will be reliable in the same way. If we trust Facebook, we believe that, but we don't have to trust Facebook. And Tal and I, for example, can keep our little score, and we don't have to trust your spreadsheet. And the magic of this, we're not going to get into today. So we're not going to go into all the guts of, we're going to give you a course in how blockchains work and what Satoshi Nakamoto invented. That's not what we're doing. But the outcome is pretty easy to follow, that instead of having this central spreadsheet where we store all the information, there's something that is in lots of places and can't be changed. And there's a whole mechanism for making that happen. Once you have that, there's lots of things that are amazing that you can do. For example, instead of keeping track of these numbers, whether I have 50 or Tal has 50, we can just keep track of Squirrel is the person who put this data in. And therefore, if somebody comes back and can show that they are the same person as the person who put this data in the database, then we know who Squirrel is, because we don't actually know who he is in the real world. But we know he's the same guy who put this data in and this data in and this data in. So if Squirrel has been on all the live streams, we know it's the same Squirrel showing up the 10th time as the first 9. And that kind of identity management has a lot of power. Tal, am I missing anything there? And also, folks, if you're confused by any of that, stop us, ask us a question. Tal, how am I doing?
Great.
Okay.
So
are we ready for good dollar yet, or is there more?
So let's just align them.
Yep.
Web3. So Web3 is an integrated way to send stuff that looks or feels like money, or pieces of unique data that you can number them, right? So it's you can number every piece of data, and it's stored it's shared, it's stored on the internet, let's call it.
Mm-hmm.
Decentralized databases. People are incentivized to run computers that are just doing processing. Let's not think about how it works, but it works, and it's all human-made game theory incentivization program between different counterparts in order to make, just like, rather than an Amazon executive decides to build AWS web services, instead of that, it's just a co-op of individuals who without permission can buy a piece of computer and start participating in or offering process power to the network, to the extent that it's an AWS competitor. To an extent, the internet database is almost kind of like an AWS competitor that runs on the internet, ran by many people that are just buying computers and hooking them to the network.
Indeed.
With a reward mechanic to it. Please.
And great questions exactly on this point. So Gary Tombling asks, decentralized, and I'm not quite sure what he means by that, but the answer is yes. This is a database that does not live in one place. It lives in many places, and we're not getting into the details of how this works, but trust us for the moment. It works so that you put something in this database, you put something in this Excel spreadsheet, and it can't be erased or changed, or you can't change it and nobody else can. And so you can rely on its being there. In the same way, most of the time we rely on Facebook, right? I'm broadcasting on Facebook here. I'm expecting that the video will be available later. I'm not expecting Mark Zuckerberg to delete it. With the blockchain, I could be certain it wouldn't be deleted. I would know that it was in that place. That's how it's supposed to work. And Paul asks, are we, oh, go ahead, Tal, and then we'll get to Paul's question.
Just to add the literal name, blockchain. So this is a pieces of information that are keep being added to a big database, and you can always look back to the anything that was done before. That's why.
And they're chained together. Blockchain. That's why it's called a chain, and they're blocks of data. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Paul asks, is this blockchain process, is it actually infallible? You know, I'm saying, hey, this will work, and you know that it's always going to have the same data everywhere. This is a tricky question, and this is getting into, are we really ready? Is the world ready to actually rely on Web3? Can we rely on it 100%? There are examples. They're rare, but there are examples where people have got under the skin of how this thing works and changed it in ways that aren't expected. That's where we're still figuring out how this thing works. We're kind of at the stage where, you know, like when old cars, you had to sometimes occasionally stop the car and get out and turn a crank. We're kind of at that stage where we're still, you know, you can't just get in the car like I did today and drive 60 miles and come back and not expect anything to go wrong. We're at the stage where we're still figuring this stuff out. It's pretty reliable. And there's lots of mathematics that shows that if it all works as it should work. But there are some things that can still go wrong. So I hope that's helpful to Paul. But the thing I'll say about it is the promise, the vision is pretty amazing. We could have a world in which we don't have to rely on Mark Zuckerberg. We don't have to rely on a centralized database. And that's pretty amazing. There's some nifty stuff you can do with it, which Tal and I are going to get into, I'm sure. So Tal, where are we? Are we agreed on Web3 cool. now?
Totally. So what are the what are the benefits of Web3? It works without the man, right? So without a centralized company behind it necessarily, it just runs. Everyone can hire these and interact with this data all along. It's very transparent, so anyone can. We were just saying that within a day, they found the person that the two couple that stole $3.4 billion out of Bitfinex.
Bitfinex,
yeah. I can't remember how long, 5 years ago, whatever, 2016 or so. Mm-hmm. They robbed $3.4 billion. Okay, out of not the network, to Paul's question, okay, but from a centralized website marketplace for exchanging the different kinds of cryptocurrencies. And that website, because it's still new kind of services, are most of the time where hacks happen. The blockchain has proven itself to be a reliable, proven technology, unhackable for the past 12 years. And I have to say, it I'm finding that there's just amazing talent in this space, amazing thinkers, a lot of philosophers, a lot of deep tech people. And we should feel quite confident that all of the hacks that we hear about in the news of any digital asset being stolen was stolen from a centralized entity and not from a decentralized entity.
That's fair. Here's one way to think about it. It's as if, sticking with my car analogy, we have an amazing interstate. We have an amazing motorway that goes from one place to another. It can do stupendous things for us. The problem is the on-ramps, they aren't quite built so well. They're full of potholes. And so the ways that you get onto the blockchain, and the way, sorry, my dog's excited about the blockchain, the ways you get onto it and the ways you keep it moving, the way you access it and use it, those are places where the weaknesses are today. Which is why I wouldn't say, Paul, you should go reshape Hug completely, your startup completely around the blockchain. It's not ready. The motorway runs really well. The on-ramp, not so good. The slip road isn't quite ready.
I would say that there is a company who are making engines, to your analogy, and there's a bunch of people putting those engines into unreliable cars. Okay, so the engine works, okay, but sometimes the gear is broken, sometimes whatever. And there's a bunch of manufacturers. If you go to the Mercedes, you're going to get kind of like a more robust, reliable car, maybe less, super technical. If you go to the Tesla of it, it would look fancy, but it might sometimes push the accelerator and crash you into a wall.
So that's why you shouldn't bet your startup on it yet. And Paul says that's the question ruminating in his mind. So good that we helped Paul avoid
I do not know what Paul does, but my answer for that is it depends. Okay, so let's talk about what are the type of things that Web3 enables, and we'll move to Good Dollar. Web3 enables a bunch of things, a bunch of utilities. NFT is one of them. Okay, is the ability for a designer illustrator, and any type, kind of visual creators mainly, to sell certificates of their art to someone. So we said, so we can, we're basically, just like in our example with me and Squirrel having 150 with him and 50 with me, and we have to make it work. So if I move 20 to him, I'm going to lose 20. That's because that is how it's hard coded into the system. We said we're only going to have 100. So NFT is the case of one. So if I have one, I can only send that to one. And if that one wants to send it to someone, they can only send it to another person. Okay, but it can only exist once. We talked about the blockchain. The blockchain is going to show that Tal created that one. He sent it for $2,000, he received $2,000 in exchange for sending it to Squirrel. That was sent to him. Now it's with Squirrel. Tal is out of the game. And Squirrel sold it 10x for someone for 20,000, for that. Let's not deal with what.
Is sell 20 of them to 20 different people, and so I can't make more of them. That's the crucial thing about this NFT. It means non-fungible token, meaning it's a token that can't be replicated. You can't make more
just one
by just copying the database row.
It's a primary.
Yep.
A primary kind of number in a way.
And we have a great question from someone. Is it not a user requirement to allow data to be deleted? For certain databases, absolutely. Right? So we have the right to be forgotten in Europe. I can ask Mark Zuckerberg to delete things from his database. I can't do that with the blockchain. So this user, I'm not sure who this is, a wonderful question, because that means this is useful in certain cases and not in others. Keep going, Tom.
Having said that, the blockchain starts from a position, of you are the only one that has access to your data. So why would you want to erase your own history if you're the only one that is able to access it? It's like deleting, memories of yourself, which you only can you access. So the right to be forgotten it's a regulatory enforcement because users wanted their data to be deleted from those companies that have been aggregating data without their knowledge, and wanted to make sure that there's an enforceable way to do that. When the data is owned by you, and I can explain how is it owned by you and how can we promise that, but if it's owned by you, there's no reason to ask for someone to delete it. It's yours. You're giving, if you want to give permission to someone to look at it, you can even do that. You can even have someone have permission to look at the data for 15 minutes.
And then not after your data. So they can, you control it. That's the theory. And I hope that's helping that user. We also have a comment from Ben Ritchie, which we'll come back to. So Ben, we've seen yours, but I don't want to get in Tal's flow here because I want to get us to Good Dollar. How's Good Dollar make use of this blockchain to help people who are least able in our society?
Okay, great. So Good Dollar is so we said, okay, so Good Dollar is a non-for-profit that aims to onboard the next billion people to blockchain, because we believe this is an empowering, this is an empowering knowledge gap that if people, the more people understand the benefit of that, the more we will see a transition towards people power. And we do that basically by allowing, by creating. Okay, so that's the mission. Okay, how do we do that? What we're doing is we're basically giving people money, real money. Okay. And
pictures of the Queen, pictures of presidents, actual physical money. Yep.
Not physical money. Money.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Digital money on the internet. We give people money. Doesn't matter. Yep. Let's forget the physical world for a second. We'll talk about how
they can turn it into money they can use. Go on.
Exactly, but it's money. So I'm sending a person a person a few hundred rupees a day, and they can. And they can use that money in order to experiment with things that already work in Web3. Okay, so we're giving them money, basically not fake money, like play money. So it's not play money, it's actual money. And we're telling them, listen, we're giving you actual money, so you don't have to risk it. Your entrance, your risk is none. Come experiment, come learn this thing.
And what we hope is those on-ramps are working well so that they can make use of that. And we're going to find out where the potholes are, I would expect. So we're going to try to help them to get as much as they can out of this world. What can they do with it? So if I'm in India and I'm getting a few hundred rupees as a result of Good Dollar's transactions, what can I do with it?
So the first thing that you can do with it is buy swap it to Bitcoin. Right? Everyone wants Bitcoin. Everyone knows what Bitcoin is. I dare someone to swap Good Dollars that they received to Bitcoin. Now it's Bitcoin. Now they're owner of a Bitcoin now. The people know that Bitcoin supposedly has a positive, yield expectations.
Yep. And they hope it goes up over time because they expect it'll be more valuable. And even if it doesn't, it's fungible. It's something you can actually turn into bread and rice and whatever it is you might need.
Supposedly, Bitcoin specifically, you wouldn't be able to, but that's why actually Good Dollar is there. So the reason that Bitcoin cannot be used in stores is actually two. So one, there's a limited amount of transactions you can do swiping your Bitcoin card if more than 100, like less than that, 6 people do that in the same second. Bitcoin specifically
good point.
Is cannot run the next transaction. So
yep. There's a limit on how much you can put in the database. Keep going.
Exactly. So Bitcoin, so that's one. The second reason is that making a transaction, because there's so very few transactions that can happen that the network can facilitate, it typically means that there's a lot of competition on those transactions. That means that the cost of transaction, okay, is to update or to change, to transfer money from one person to another is going to be high, sometimes in the thousands of dollars. And that means that if you go to the store and try to buy milk with Bitcoin, generally speaking, supposedly it can cost you up to a lot of thousands dollars to buy that milk. Okay, so
yep.
it's not
so
that you can't do it. It's just not going to work in real world.
Got it. So how are these folks who are getting good dollars benefiting?
Squirrel, can you cover for me for 1 second?
I can indeed. So I'll just take Ben's point here and cover that, and then we're going to come back to good dollar. But Ben says, and I'm actually going to show this on the screen. He's describing a little bit what I was describing about how people have sometimes been able, in answer to Paul's question, to do something that's not quite what I said. You said you can't change what's on the database. Well, what you can do is switch to a new database. It's as if you had your Excel spreadsheet and you say, hey, everybody, we're not going to use that Excel spreadsheet anymore. We're going to use a different one. And the miners, the people who are making this process run, who are creating and maintaining the blockchain, could, as a group, decide, 51% of them can vote, to say, okay, that old Excel spreadsheet, we're not going to use that anymore. We're going to use this Excel spreadsheet over here. And that's what happened in at least one case in Ethereum. And I was thinking of the same example that Ben mentioned. Now, over time, we're going to get to the point where this isn't the sort of thing that happens, where we have trust and a good mechanism for ensuring that you keep to the same Excel spreadsheet, the same distributed database over time. I'm confident that we'll get there. It's not quite certain yet.
I actually have a different point of view. I think what we're going to get to is data transferability between chains. So I think competition is good, and crypto is capitalistic in nature, kind of like not necessarily like it means that like stronger or Darwinism, like stronger survive, and competition is good.
And that's what I mean. We'll shake out the weaker ones. Yeah.
And we'll exactly. And data can still move. But like what I say to people that are into kind of like new NFT stuff, I tell them, listen, like what I have beyond belief. I have or have my own point of view based like that. The NFT that you're going to buy, that you might buy today, you can access it in 100 years.
And that is
which is quite a big statement, because there was nothing like that, right? Where's MySpace data? Where's your MySpace data, Squirrel?
No idea. I think I had a page long ago, but I've no idea where it's gone. Might be in the Wayback Archive, but that's the kindness of strangers I'm relying on there, not a mathematical guarantee.
Yahoo's photo service, I forget the name, was also one of those that just like one day, just like basically disappears.
GeoCities is another that just disappeared overnight. So lots of these things can disappear, assuming we have what the Bit blockchain promises, that we have this durable database that can last forever. Should last for 100 years, should last for 1,000 years. So that's how it should be. But not all this stuff is working exactly as it should. Well, Flickr's still alive, I think. But at any rate,
Flickr, yes.
At any rate, what we're finding is that Web3 has some real possibilities here, including helping out people in developing countries. Did you want to say more about how it's once you've got money to them, how they can use it, Tal?
So first of all, good dollar. So let's assume that, like, just to before they use it. So I'm saying like, okay, so what can they use it? Okay, I'm back with you. So what they can use it, like we said, like Bitcoin, they can just like change to Bitcoin, right? It's money. I'm getting free money. Cool. If I'd send you like 30 pounds a day, like 30 pounds a day or 30 pounds a month, would you click a button to receive them to your bank account? Sure. Like if it's like money that you can only use in certain streets in your kind of like area, maybe you would use that money and go specifically to that area and just like buy there, because this is where you can kind of like buy your stuff. And so there's
we have a couple people in the chat who've noted the different places where you can use Bitcoin. So absolutely true. But Tal, you said there were more things that they could do. So help us out with what else they can do.
So a lot of people so 1.7 billion people out of 9 don't have any understanding or any access to banking at all. Okay, 1.7 billion people. 5.5 billion people are what's known as underbanked. That means that they're getting very basic services, which are typically more beneficial to the bank than the customer. So, for example, what can you do with good dollars? You can learn that you can save, and there's many new. So, if you'd go to a bank, they would offer you a saving account, right? Like if you have money, you can put in our saving account. You're gonna get like 0.01 interest fee.
They're going up a bit, but not much. Yeah,
but not much. And that's and they can maybe offer you 3-4 of those saving accounts with different variables that you're never going to understand what the difference are, because they're never going to nurture you to understand it. And anyways, most of those saving accounts are actually made for the banks to have money to be loaning to other people, and you're actually a tool in that sense.
And so what else can I do with my good dollars? What's the better thing I can do?
On the internet, if you get good dollars or any other crypto, you can tap into any saving account that exists on the internet. You're not obliged to use the one that exists on your bank. So good dollar is actually a part of another stream of things made possible by Web3, which is called DeFi, decentralized finance.
I'm just going to spell that in the chat for anybody who's not sure what those DEFI. Keep going.
Decentralized finance. That basically means anything that is not ran by a centralized entity. Binance is DeFi or CeFi? Let's ask that. CeFi, centralized finance. DeFi, decentralized finance. What is Binance? Drum rolls. So Binance is an entity. We all know the CEO. So it is a part of CeFi. This is like they are regulated just like a bank.
And Binance, for those who don't know, is an exchange for cryptocurrencies. And as Tal says, it is run centrally. It's run really in a Web2 kind of way. It's one of the on-ramps to get onto this super highway.
Yeah, you can
buy you're describing
crypto,
mechanisms that run natively on the superhighway that allow you to do your banking in a decentralized way. And the great thing Tal's doing is making sure there are people who are going to be customers for those banks. So what should be happening is we're kind of seeding one side of the market, and then people should appear who say, well, gosh, I'll pay you 0.5% interest or 1% interest here on the blockchain. And the fact that Web3 exists, the fact that the blockchain exists, the fact that we can have a way of tracking our 50 and making sure that it's not duplicated, that then means that those people have the opportunity to build those banks. And Tal, I don't know the state of this. Can I actually go and do that today without going through Binance if I have my good dollars?
Do what? Sorry.
Deposit my money in a bank account. So I'm in some place where there aren't any banks nearby, and the banks don't trust me anyway because I'm poor. I get a bunch of good dollars. Can I go onto the internet and find myself a DeFi bank and put it in for to earn interest?
Totally. So the Web3 is permissionless. That means that money talks.
Well, that was what I was wondering. I don't know if these actually exist. Are they out there?
So you can,
go find them?
yeah, of course. So DeFi, so a good dollar is in the subset of DeFi, and that means that like you can take your good dollars and put it into let's say compound finance, which is another site. I can write it down somewhere, which is a money market, a loan, borrowing and borrowing money market. So if you need to take a loan, you can take a loan there, and you pay your loan with interest. So you can take your good dollars and loan it and start receiving interest for it. So
which is after all what you're doing when you put money in a saving account. You're loaning it to the bank. You're just loaning it to a centralized bank. So the difference in the DeFi world is you're loaning it in a decentralized way, to using the decentralized database to allow yourself to do that.
Exactly. And there's a lot of nifty stuff you can start doing when that option exists, because there's a lot of innovation in DeFi. So you guys can search kind of like for the many different DeFi options. Basically, this is typically kind of going to be this financial analyst working for a bank saying, I can't be bothered to still work in a bank. I want to innovate, and I want to innovate on one of the structured tools I may have was selling as a bank, and they're creating it in code relatively quickly and launch a service which is similar to what a bank would give to customers. But I don't know if you guys kind of like aware, but if you have a lot of money, you have a lot more access to structured tools than the average person, and you can get yields like close to 10% quite easily, while the retail Joe Schmo receives the 0.0 something.
So we're democratizing this access to finance.
Exactly. So in DeFi, you're actually, because there are many options, so this is kind of like really opening these structural financial tools for everyone. And that means that a person on a mobile in Nigeria has the same financial tool set as Warren Buffett.
Exactly. And Paul asks a very important question, which I think goes back to the on-ramps. He says, the tricky part is the regulated banks have the cash, and that's an advantage of centralization. So there is a puzzle when suppose that I'm in Nigeria, I get my good dollars, I make some money on my decentralized finance. I actually get access, I'm getting better interest rates, I'm doing better. I still have a puzzle, which the blockchain world hasn't fully solved yet. How do I turn that into cash, which I can then actually go to pay for something?
So I've been in Rwanda, and I'll tell you how it works in Rwanda.
Tell me.
In Rwanda, there's, and most of Africa, actually, I don't know if we have people that have visited Africa or live there, but in Rwanda, in Africa, there's the concept of airtime. So the mobile telecom companies are the actual banks.
Yes.
So what happens is that if you want to change if you want to redeem your airtime into cash because you want to go to the store, you're going to find someone on the street. They have literally kind of like there's like a pole with a sign next to them. They stand there all day. You go there and they're going to change you're going to send them your airtime to their phone, and they're going to give you cash minus 10%. So at least as the big banks has all of the money, they use that money to block blockchain and to disempower people, because they're preserving their own financial structure and business model. Okay, so they're spending it on lobbying against this thing. So at the moment, the reason you cannot redeem is because it's unregulated. That means that there aren't any clear guidelines, and banks are trying to block any interface with people that are working in crypto, even because it's a survival fight. It's a replacement for their whole infrastructure, and I acknowledge and understand their fear.
And so we still have these challenges. And so what I'd say to folks like Paul, who ask these great questions, don't go for this quite yet. Don't put all your eggs in this basket, but watch this space, because there's tremendous stuff happening. We haven't even touched half of it. Things like distributed identity management. So instead of having to remember passwords and have them hacked, right, which is happening to so many people so much of the time, you have something decentralized, and you can use that to be your identity. And therefore, it's in this database, and you know that you're the same person who's shown up the last 9 times. I referred to that before. So there's the finance end, there's identity management, there's getting out from under the big centralized Web2 controllers like LinkedIn, like Facebook, all the ones you're watching us on right now, and having a decentralized model. We're coming toward the end, so I want to try to bring this together. And thanks so much for all of you with all your great questions. I really appreciate that. If you're going to take away some things, I would say the main one to take away is when people talk about this crazy Web3 NFTs, pictures of apes, people buying strange things for weird amounts of money. There's a fundamental advance here. There's something that's really amazing that just isn't quite visible yet, and that's this distributed database. Once you have that, you can enable all these things. We've gone rather deeply into good dollar, because that's what Tal has been working on so wonderfully, and helping people in these emerging economies. That's one type of implementation. That's one type of thing that this can help with. Others are out there, and you can imagine them. People are figuring them out right now. We've talked about decentralized finance as one of those, so that you can have access to the financial tools that are very limited right now. We've talked about being able to have distributed identity, so that you can actually identify yourself without being controlled or canceled by somebody like Mark Zuckerberg. Those are the sorts of things that are coming. The on-ramps, though, aren't there for the superhighway, and they're not perfect. They're there, but they have some potholes. Things are not perfect. It's not running quite the way we'd like it to yet. So my general guidance to my clients is watch this space very carefully. And that gentleman I started with, the guy who's building this, helping people who build ships for the Navy, I said, this isn't quite ready for you, but watch this, because it's going to have amazing effects very soon. And certainly experiment with it. Get yourself some good dollars and help some people in emerging economies. Try out some Bitcoin. Try looking at an NFT. See what these things are about. And one thing I want to say before we go, of course, is that this is the Squirrel Squadron. This is my community of wonderful people like Tal and all of you who are technical and non-technical, and talking together and learning together. We've had a great interaction just here in the chat between Ben, who I know is a CTO, and Paul, who I know is a non-technical founder, and you guys are helping each other, which is exactly what the squadron's about. There's a series of events that I'm doing just like this one. There's one next week on specifically on the blockchain, and that's for my executive community. So if you're interested in these sorts of things and talking more about this and learning more about these bleeding edge ideas, please get in touch. I'll put a link in the chat for where you can do that. And I would love for you to participate more in the Squirrel Squadron, get to know more of this. This is my way of giving back, connecting tech and non-tech people. And if you're on the recording, of course, feel free to get in touch and find out more and come to one of these live so you can ask your own questions. So Tal, I just want to thank you. I know we didn't get to half of what we wanted to. I'm going to have you back, and we'll do more for sure. But at this point, let's bring it to a close and thank everybody for being here and asking great questions. I'm going to put in the chat the place where you can find more of these events. I'm going to continue the live streams as well as the Zoom calls. So both will be available, and you can have a look there to find out more, and to please also suggest topics that you would like to find out about. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Really glad that we were able to help so many people. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
See you later.
Bye-bye.